Star Wars, classification of the Separatist Alliance droids during the Clone Wars. Hello YouTube friends. Here with a new video. The Separatist droid army was one of the branches of the armed forces of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, the political group that faced the Galactic Republic, starting the conflict known as the Clone Wars. In this video, we will analyze the droid army of the Confederacy of Independent Systems and the variety of robots that made it up. After a series of conflicts against commercial interests, in which over time, the large commercial and economic societies of the galaxy, they provided themselves with battle droids, as if they were private defense armies. As seen during the blockade of Naboo, shown in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. After this, and over time, the political idealist, former Jedi, and secretly Sith, Count Dooku. He managed to attract several of these entities to unify his armies. Thus was born the Separatist Council, made up of Dooku as head of state and the leaders of the Trade Federation, the T'Naunian, the banking clan and others, forming the rest of the government platform and the High Command, which also included the Supreme Commander of the Separatist droid armies, General Grievous. Other High Command forces also served, such as Supreme Leader Asajj Ventress and other Separatist commanders. This whole mix of droid forces were made up by the Geonosian Droid Army, the Trade Federation Army, the Techno-Union Droid Army, the forces of the Intergalactic Banking Clan, the Droid Army of the Retail Assembly, the Corporate Alliance and the Commerce Guild. Apart from other local military forces of other member systems and sectors of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, such as the Geonosian forces of the Stalgasan Hive, the Umbaran Militia, and others. It is important to note that the battle droids that we will see here not only saw useful service during the Clone Wars, but beyond them. It must be considered that after the end of the conflict and the dissolution of the Confederation of Independent Systems, the Galactic Republic became the Empire, and the T'Naunian and other commercial organizations were dissolved, and its subsidiaries became independent or were nationalized by the Empire, who absorbed their resources and took over their patents, designs, and manufacturing capacity. To the question of how many droids made up the army, an approximate number, in the canon it is said that there could have been 200,000 million active units towards the end of the war. Each faction contributed a specific type of forces, so let's analyze them starting with the simplest combat unit of all, the battle droid B-1. The B-1, also known as Scraps, were the most widely used standard battle droids. Manufactured as an infantry unit of the Confederacy of Independent Systems and the Geonosian or Trade Federation armies. These droids were designed and created by Geonosis Bactoid Engineering. Geonosian factories manufactured billions of these units. They were equipped with communicators, photoreceptors with infrared capacity, and simple vocalizers, which allowed them to speak in basic in their characteristic voice. Its structure was made of an inexpensive but generally durable metal. Even so, they were few resistant against blaster fire and lightsabers. His standard equipment was his trusty E5 blaster rifle and thermal detonators. Although depending on the variant, and there were many of them, their equipment could change. They carried backpacks to enhance the communication signal between them and their commanders, hence that antenna. Of course, there were many variants of the B-1 battle droids, and they were identified by color patterns according to their roles. Finally, the droid forces were deactivated at the end of the war and sent mostly to foundries and scrapyards. Although they managed to last in other places, where they enjoyed a second life. Super Battle Droid B-2. The next evolutionary leap of the separatist battle droids were the B-2, or also called Super Battle Droids. These droids were also created by Bactoid Engineering and manufactured by the Geonosians. They saw its use directly in the First Battle of Geonosis, which began the Clone Wars. Endowed with enough strength to lift a trooper off the ground, and armed with blaster pistols integrated into their right forearm, they were proficient in ranged and hand-to-hand combat, and much tougher than the B-1. The Super Battle Droid cost more than its predecessor. There were about 100 B-1 battle droids for every B-2 on the fronts. They were equipped with independent processing capacity, but with simple processors, having to rely on smarter commanders to operate effectively. Of course, they served alongside the B-1, for whom he did not have much respect throughout the war. The droid, Cass. Known by their nickname Destroyer Droids. Droid Cass were dangerous and deadly, designed to exterminate their adversaries with maximum prejudice and destruction. Its most characteristic function was its movement, transforming into a ball and rolling at 75 km per hour. When they did not roll, they advanced or stabilized on 3 legs, and a shield generator came into action that protected them from energy attacks. Short range and high speed, making blasters and traditional close combat weapons useless. In addition, on their upper legs they held 2 twin repeating blaster cannons that they could use by firing very rapid bursts through their shield. Because the shield was polarized to allow the droid Kansas blaster rays to exit, while preventing attacks from entering. However, there were some risky tricks that could be exploited in combination against the droid Cass. And they were blind from behind, and their shields were ineffective against slow and stationary objects. Therefore, if the destroyer was distracted, a good electromagnetic pulse grenade thrown slowly could penetrate its shield and destroy it. These droids, along with the first B-1s, were already used by the Trade Federation as part of their private army. The Pisto-Echa sabotage droid. Colloquially called buzzers, they were small droids specialized in sabotage. If there is an equivalent to gremlins among Star Wars droids, these are the buzzers. Dedicated solely and exclusively to deactivate or disable enemy ships. They were so good at dismantling and disabling ships that it was decided to add them to the armament of other ships, such as vulture droids, and could usually be seen assaulting their victims using specialized missiles that carried and deployed them. They were like a plague droid, able to protect themselves in an armored shell. They made quick work of the infesting ships, using a multitude of tools to do so. The Aku battle droid. Aquadroids or Aku droids were an amphibious model of battle droids manufactured by the Haberchal Engineering Corporation and the Techno Union. They were excellent swimmers. As a model based on the B2 series, they possessed a retractable laser cannon on their right wrist, and were used by the Confederacy of Independent Systems to besiege water planets such as Kamino and Munday Kala during the Clone Wars. They had a peculiar polygonal head that could be retracted or changed position to facilitate swimming, which is what it was designed for: aquatic combat, reducing resistance to the maximum by helping. For this, in addition to feet whose position could vary from the standard posture for walking on land or folding into fins underwater, they were equipped with a single retractable laser cannon placed on the right wrist, and their arms were also very strong. The LR-57 combat droid. This particular model of battle droid was the Retail Assembly's contribution to the Confederacy of Independent Systems during the Clone Wars, being introduced in the early Battle of Christophsis. With relatively low versatility, the LR-57 was used for very particular situations. A tall, large 8-foot droid with a bobblehead was often used as a sentinel. One of its facets was revealed with the use of its sensors and antennas to detect surface movement, while he remained buried waiting for his victims to fall into the trap. He was therefore usually placed in strategic places to ambush his enemies. Furthermore, their joint programming allowed that if an LR-57 was activated in ambush mode, the other companions would also be activated. Its design was not very versatile, although it had double medium-range laser cannons. The killer droid E-522. The E-522 Assassin was a droid model that, although rarely seen, was one of the most feared models. Created during the Clone War conflict by Bactoid combat automatons under the corporate umbrella of the Techno Union. But they saw service primarily during the Galactic Civil War. With its imposing 2 meters in height and its robust structure, it was a beast armed with heavy repeating blasters, a heavy ion blaster, and rapid blaster pistols instead of hands. But it also had 3 additional arms and miniaturized missile launchers on its back. But it was also packed with sensors, giving it complete 360-degree control and a powerful combat computing system, serving as assassins and support units for covert operations. The Chameleon Droid. The Iroquois Industries Chameleon Droid was a type of sabotage probe droid used for both reconnaissance and mine-laying. Measuring 2 meters and having a series of appendages characteristic of the Iroquois probe designs. They were equipped with laser cannons, military-grade mines, and a peculiar military holographic array, which allowed them to perform a deep and complex scan of their environment. And the projection it generated hid it, confusing it with the environment in which it was located, camouflaging it. These droids were used during the Clone Wars, although they were not programmed as front-line combat units, but rather for covert functions or to infiltrate enemy lines, lay mines, and assassinate or sabotage targets. We first saw them deployed on Ilum, where they attacked the Jedi's Kyber crystal caves. Work droids PK. The PK series worker droid was durable and versatile, capable of performing basic tasks such as simple repairs, organizing supplies, cleaning offices, or inventing loads. They were equipped with extremely efficient batteries that allowed them to go a long time between charging sessions. The C8 Saboteur Battle Droid. As its name suggests, the purpose of this droid was sabotage of enemy positions. For this it was designed and manufactured with dark tones and featureless matte black plates. It featured advanced sensor masking and cloaking technology, which allowed droids to surprise a target before quickly escaping sight. With stealth being his first weapon, he could hide a small number of other secondary blasters in hidden compartments. The Lancer droids IG. The IG series from Hollow Wand Laboratories, although it is a brief review since there are not many details about these droids. Although they share obvious design characteristics of the IG series. The BX Commando droids. With the fearsome commando droids, we reach one of the most advanced combat forces from the Bactoid Ingenuity and the Geonosian factories. Designed for infiltration and combat behind enemy lines. Their versatility and effectiveness positioned them so well performing security tasks. As bodyguards and assassins for the highest separatist positions. They were lethal and adaptable, wreaking havoc on the ranks of the clone army, putting even the Jedi in trouble. And sometimes changed the course of battles. This droid is the final evolution of the series started in the B1 droids. The BX being the most advanced, most intelligent and most resistant version of the entire series. They were programmed with improved combat tactics and complex battlefield knowledge. Their structure was made of steel reinforced with titanium, making them very resistant even to direct blaster impacts, with their compact head being the weak point. But added to all this was how incredibly agile and acrobatic they were, far surpassing the rest of the battle droids. They were also experts in infiltration, being able to alter their vocabulators to imitate other voices. And their structure allowed them to use armor to disguise themselves as enemies. They were also agile and resistant, very strong, and skilled in distance combat as well as in body-to-body combat, mastering the use of vibrazwords. The ranks among the BX droids were identified by white markings or patterns. Of course, all these wonders made the Commandos units exceptionally expensive and their manufacturing much smaller than that of the rest of the droids. After the end of the war and the deactivation of the droid army, almost all Commandos were decommissioned, with some exceptions. The Magna Guards IG-100. These fearsome and advanced droids were the creation of Hollow Laboratories, the creators of the IG series assassin droids, such as the IG-86, the IG-11 Bounty Hunter or the IG-88 Bounty Hunter. Normally, the presence of the Magna Guards indicated that some high command of the Confederacy was nearby. They were undoubtedly the favorites of General Grievous, and were even used as personal guards of Count Dooku. The Hollowan Company, very expert in creating fearsome mechanical monsters. They gave the Magna Guards with their expressionless faces and red photoreceptors a disturbing appearance, which, together with his abilities created at the express request of Count Dooku, so that they would live up to the category of warrior that General Grievous desired. They resulted in a formidable combatant. Grievous sought for the parameters of fighting and combat to follow the patterns of the Kalash warriors, the species to which Grievous belonged. These droids also joined and learned new movement tactics, specializing in many forms of combat. Added to this, the training that Dooku provided to Grievous in the Jedi arts was transmitted by the cyborg to the IG-100, giving these droids the tasty task of having to oppose and be a challenge to the Jedi Knights. The result speaks for itself, with the creation of a terrifyingly effective force of droids. Although against more experienced Jedi they may not last long, and against Jedi less skilled in combat, they were deadly. Grievous training left the IG-100 with the equivalent of scars on a droid, giving them even more aura. Grievous wanted his disciples, rivals, to see that they were facing combat veterans. Additionally, as a final touch of style, Grievous incorporated Kalash coats with patterns and motifs from their original culture, giving them a more imposing touch. Furthermore, they were rarely seen working alone. IG-100 units typically traveled in groups of 2 or 3 droids. Furthermore, Grievous often used them as a shield and first line of defense, so anyone attacking him would have to go through the IG-100 first. And if the attacker managed to counter them, he would end up so exhausted that he would become mere entertainment for General Cyborg. Furthermore, like other droids, the IG-100 could lose an arm or both legs and still continue fighting. They could even fight without heads. Their role as elite combatants and their work as personal guard of the separatist head gave the IG-100 automatic authority over the rest of the droid ranks. The Jedi and clone troopers eventually learned to target their vital systems, but even this was not easy, since they were also armored in their main structure. The Magna Guards was normally armed with electro-staffs, which generated electricity on frick metal, a rare and robust alloy that could be used against Jedi lightsabers. Additionally, they complemented their training in the 7 classic forms of lightsaber combat. And not only that, they were also capable of piloting starfighters and were skilled in the use of rocket launchers. The T-Series Military Tactical and Strategic Analysis Droid. Tactical droids were the answer given by the Bactoid Engineering for the Confederacy of Independent Systems to carry out the coordination tasks of their droid-armed forces as advisors and also as generals. Put into operation and manufactured directly during the Clone Wars. They were deployed at key points in the war across the galaxy. These droids were very intelligent, with their primary function being strategy and calculating combat algorithms and probabilities of responses, separating them from the rest of the droids directly destined and programmed for fight and combat. For this reason, the T-1s were almost never seen on the front lines of the war, directing their troops from separatist bases or command ships. They were more independent than the rest of the B-series battle droids. Although an even more advanced model, the ST series, was later released, the T-1 continued to operate in combination with these. The T-1s were tall, measuring almost 2 meters, and were aware of their programming and intelligence superior to that of the rest of the army, which gives them an egocentric and narcissistic character at times. They were calculating and cold, with ruthless droid logic. If they had to sacrifice forces, they did not hesitate, and if the most advantageous situation required abandoning their troops to their fate, they would do so. They meant a very important change in the course of the war, being able to direct their units with unusual effectiveness. That logic, based on precise calculations and algorithms, however, had a weakness. Since they lacked imagination and creativity when faced with unexpected situations. Something that the Jedi and the clones knew how to take advantage of. Despite the deactivation of the galaxy-wide droid army at the end of the war, remnants of the T-series could still be found well into the Imperial era. During the Galactic Civil War, Ahsoka Tano gave a rebel cell the head of a T-1 to aid them in their search for allies. Of course, the rebels managed to kidnap some of them. The Military Tactical and Strategic Analysis Droid (ST Series). The tactical super droid was the masterpiece in terms of strategy and analysis of combat and separatist response. This droid was an advanced model of tactical droid that was to replace the T-series. Created by Bactoid Engineering, their objective was to correct the response deficiencies and lack of strategic creativity of the T-1. The result was the biggest headache for Jedi generals he could offer. The Confederation of Independent Systems when reconquering or counterattacking key objectives. The ST had greater strategic processing and intelligence, better tactical analysis and prediction of responses against organic rivals. The STS quickly became field marshals, being commanders or generals. They coexisted, however, with the T-series, who then directed fleet groups or smaller missions. Compared to the main campaigns or operations carried out by the tactical super droids. More robust, stronger, and with better armor than their predecessor, the ST had greater individuality and self-awareness. To the point that they personalized their casing with patterns or color schemes, and gave themselves names to replace their serial numbers. But these droids developed another disadvantage. Their high capacity and pride led them to an almost organic overconfidence. Furthermore, they could also become paranoid. This was the case of the super tactical droid Kalani, who was caught on the planet of Agamar by the order to deactivate the droid army at the end of the war, where he remained ignoring said order, believing that it was a strategy of the Republic. I hope you liked the video. Comment and like if so. Subscribe so you encourage me to create more content for you. From time to time, I upload videos of the most varied topics, touching on a little bit of everything. But mainly I focus on my own work. Scholastar. I give writing advice. Blender classes. I talk about my experiences in electronics and repairing cell phones. I give other tips about daily life. I like the game of Go, it is simple and profound at the same time, like life itself. And I also share my favorite tastes, so sometimes YouTube censors me from time to time. If you support me with a like, a comment or a subscription, you will help me bypass the algorithm's censorship. After all, I upload videos with useful information for everyone, and even more so if they share my same tastes. Greetings to all. Until a next video.